If dogs bring run the clock, they get off on the deal. So they quit the clock with the deal.
Well, I noticed in my column, I think on the Tuggles News, it says 2 deer were seen from here, about a mile from here, about last week or something.
Where was that?
Record on social.
My name is Mike Rice, and this is my collection of civil artifacts. I've been collecting probably since I was maybe 10 years old. And Mr. Osborne here has got some interesting items here. He's going to start the program and talk about some of the things he brought here tonight. And as soon as he finishes, I'll start back again, tell you a little bit about what I have here.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Osborne, I was going to come up both, but that's fine, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You yourself? No problem. Well, you pulled them in, so go ahead. This is probably the biggest crowd we've ever had here at the train station for a Historical Society meeting. And that says something about either the Civil War or about Mike's collection or about the knowledge that Mike has to share with you tonight. But I appreciate all the strangers we have here that haven't been to a Historical Society meeting before. I'm Billy Colston, I'm the president, and we have several of our vice presidents, corresponding secretary, and recording secretary, and directors are here tonight. And if anybody wants to join, I'll be somewhere around here and you can see me. And it's only $15 a year for an individual, or $25 a year for a family membership. And you get a newsletter that tells you when the meetings are and what they're about. But it didn't come here really to harp up the Historical Society. I came to just say welcome and to say thank you for attending, and we hope you'll enjoy tonight's presentation. And to say that for those that are members, the slate of officers has been approved by the Board of Directors, and I was going to have it voted on tonight, but we have so many guests that I think we'll just hold that off and do it again. It's already in place legally by the directors, but we usually have the general membership approve that too. And the officers are me as president, Phil Blaker vice president, treasurer is Robert Flippin, recording secretary is Lynn Blaker, corresponding secretary is Elizabeth Gamble, historian is Jennifer Eichmeyer-Bolt, and directors are Virginia Jones, Nancy Morris, David Coles, and Tony DeMille. David Coles is present tonight. He's with Longwood College, and he's a new director. This is his first night of being a director, and so is Tony DeMille. They're both in the back. Welcome, and hope you get a lot out of sharing with us your skills and bringing it to the general public. Again, welcome, and I'll turn it back over to Mike, who has just turned it over to Mr. Osborne. I'll let them have their due. It looks like we have a good meeting coming up.
All right. Thank you, Billy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mike. This is a projectile that was shot into the Lister Springs house on the morning of April the 7th, about 7:30. And it went in the house and went down the inside the wall. Now, most of you all, I'm going to give you a copy. I hope I have enough, 35 of them, to give you one as soon as I tell you the best I can. This is a shingle shell. It probably was shot from somewhere down near the bridge. And it went in through the wall, and instead of having 2x4s in this house has 4x6s. And it hit one of those and dropped down on the floor. They didn't know exactly how to make a fuse that you should. We learned something in the other wars that we took that fuse and put it inside. Then when it hits something, it doesn't break it. It broke the fuse off, and therefore it's still loaded. It did not explode, and I doubt it after 132 years it's going to explode. I hope not. What was all about was they had banked the train down for mathematics with provisions on it And of course, the soldiers were hungry, and they backed across the river to Jackson Heights for some unknown reason, maybe to avoid the enemy, and they were feeding the troops over there. General Lee met General Breckinridge, who was supposed to be supplying food for the army, and talked with him there in the yard at this house. Then they went on down to Common Church. Thanks to Walter and Fred Putney and Mr. Taylor here, his parents, they remodeled it in 1941, and this is an article out of the paper of 1941 when they remodeled it. It's fairly accurate, and I'm not going to hold it up, and we can pass these around and let everybody, as far as they'll go, if somebody pass them around, if you want one. All right. Don't drop it. I'm not going to drop it. This is a field desk. And a friend of mine, Mr. Hugh Smith, back about 1940, gave me this. His father picked it up down at Double Bridges. And it has on now Harkham's Raiders, Harkham's Legion, South Carolina. I didn't know what it was particularly, I just kept it. A gentleman from South Carolina named Mr. Soxley came by one time looking for his father's grave. And he thought he was buried up there in the Confederate cemetery. And Stuckley is his name. I don't have any copies of this, I'll let y'all read. But then Mr. Stockley came, and he wanted me to show him where the Confederate cemetery was. We don't know exactly who's buried up there. It's probably 300-400 of them. And we know a whole lot of them are not buried there, but we don't know exactly who is buried there. And he said in this article he was looking for Sandy Ford, which is right here, up the river from us. And he said his grandfather was a Confederate soldier, and he wanted me to take him down there to it, and I took him down behind the bazaar there and showed it to him. He was, I didn't know all this. I didn't know much about the death. So when he got back to South Carolina, he sent us a 2-page letter on it and told us all about where this outfit had been. The outfit was named Harkham's Legion. The governor of South Carolina's wife was a Miss Harper. She sold all her jewelry and things in about 1862 and outfitted this bunch of soldiers. And they fought some other places. He tells about how they did it. When they got down here to Double Bridges, they were annihilating the Confederate Army down in that bottom round Double Bridges. They, of course, everybody was for them, did the best they could. And they left all this. This is a field desk. It's the same field desk that the United States Army uses or did use in World War II. And I don't believe they're going to change. It kept the company records. And this is not a very good example of it, but it has little pigeonholes or was in it. If y'all, some of y'all want to read that,
You wanted Chris and I to raise it up so that everybody can see it?
Well,
So they can see the writing.
They can understand it a little bit.
So they see the writing on it.
Tilted a little bit so they can see this. Around here, I don't know how to do it. And it had legs, see? That's how, can you see it? I would like to have something done to it, but I'm scared to destroy it. It's authenticity.
Yeah, better to leave it.
That's a big word.
Yeah. On this edge is where he's,
But we just left it there, and see, it was pigeonholes in it. This was petitioned all off. Why the Army does that, I do not know, but they did it in 1942 and 3 when I was in the Army, and World War II. And I understand now they still have the field desk the same. It has legs on it. It's just their way of doing business.
Mr. Hugh Smith was the father of the 3 Smith girls just in the edge of Buckingham. Their father's
Oh, my
name
goodness.
was Mr. Hugh Smith.
I did not know that.
Now, I don't know if it's the same one.
Well, see, they live, you know where Jamestown Presbyterian Church is? All right, well, see, another story,
May not
of course,
be
you
the same
think I'm
one.
being unreasonable. But as a little boy, about 4 or 5 years old, their daddy thought I was the greatest little dude in the world. And for some reason or another, they carried that on down till 1950, and Hugh gave me this because he said, you know, your dad thought you was, my dad thought you was something. And they owned a farm right across from Jamestown Presbyterian Church.
May not be the same one, but I know they.
Well, it's Hugh Smith anyway.
Yeah. Is the trunk yours?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these relics and what I know. Some things maybe somebody else might know more about it than I do. This fellow just came up to me just now. We talked about the saddle a little bit and got all that information straight. So after I finish talking about everything, y'all are welcome to come up and take a look at everything, and I can open some of these cases up if you like and let you look at the buttons a little closer and that type of thing. Are there any questions or anything before I get started? Okay. This is what's known as a McClellan saddle. This is an 11.5-inch seat. This is really not a Civil War saddle right here. This is actually a 1903 or 1904 saddle, but it's very similar to what they use. The only difference is it would be more of a rawhide instead of leather, suede type leather instead of the hard leather, and the straps is a little bit different, but it's got some of the same brass plates and stuff, saddle shields. It's exactly the same as they had during the Civil War. This is a U.S. a bit, and it has the U.S. emblems on the side of it. And I got some cavalry spurs here. One of these I found when I was a small boy at what was an old blacksmith shop. The building was still there. It hadn't been used for a blacksmith shop in years and years. And I just kind of saw the edge of it sticking out of the ground. And, picked it up. And I got something here that's real unusual. I don't know if it's Civil War, but if it's not a Civil War cappy, it's a Confederate veteran's hat. It's real decorative. It's got one button on the side. I can't remember exactly what was written on it, but it's got VA right in front of it. And a cousin of mine in Richmond was working on an old house underneath, and it was laying like this when we found it. And this is the leather rim and everything still intact. I have some buckles and breastplates and stuff here, box plates. This is one of my best finds right here. This is a half of a tongue and reef CS buckle here. It's an officer's sword belt buckle. The book I have, they made these in various different designs. Some of them would have CS and different things. So, and this particular one had a Virginia, it's known as a Virginia militia buckle, had a Virginia state seal on it. Still has some of the original gold plate on the back of it. And if I found both pieces of this buckle, it would be a really, really good day. And I got two items here I found laying side by side. I was hunting in a lower part of Amelia County, down next to Dinwiddie line. And a friend of mine was on one side of the road and I was on the other, and I wasn't finding much. So he called me over there and So I'm finding some bullets over here, come on over. So I went over, and he came up this one area, and he found in North Carolina sunburst button, which is a really good button. So then we got to looking, and we saw these rocks piled up in a circle. Those were the original rocks from a campfire that was there probably around April 6th, maybe it's 5th or 6th or something like that. So we got to looking some more. He found a spur, the guy the fellow was with. And I walked right down below where the campfire was, and I found these two items here. This is a U.S. box plate, which went on the cartridge boxes. It's just like a belt buckle, but the hooks are different. This was a eagle breastplate, which is on the strap coming across his arm here, the shoulder. What I think, this was a Confederate camp, and these Confederates had probably taken these off as souvenirs, and they were in a hurry and had to leave. And these were left behind, laying side by side. And if they hadn't been taken off, I would have found pieces of leather or rivets and everything from the rest of the gear. So that was kind of interesting tale there. But I got this is came off a sword sheath right here. It's real decorative. It still has some of the gold plating on it. I was hunting with a friend of mine and my wife, and got a reading, and I started digging. I started finding some buttons. And to make a long story short, this was in one of the coats. The coats were dropped. I found there were two artilleryman coats. One of the coats had 5 infantry buttons and 4 artillery buttons, A buttons, and the other one had all A buttons. It should have been 18 buttons, and I found 17. And the last one ran up to a tree about this big around, and I feel certain that possibly the last one was under the tree. And of course, none of the material was there. It was just, all the buttons. We also found a key that was in the guy's pocket also.
Union or Confederate?
Confederate. I seem to find more Confederate buttons and stuff than I do Yankee for some reason. Does anybody know why this gun's bent like this?
So you can't use it. So you can't use it, probably.
Okay. This is a Confederate artillery barrel here. It's a Richmond Sharps. And I was showing it, in fact, right after I found it, I didn't know exactly what I had found. And I was talking to this guy at a reenactment. I was showing it to him, a cavalry guy, and he says, that's a captured gun. And I said, how in the devil do you know it's a captured gun? What are you talking about? He said, this Confederate was captured more than likely. They made him take his own gun and beat it around a tree. So that's the story I got on this gun. And where I found this barrel was beside an old road bed, so it was never any cultivation or anything. Logging would be the only reason why this would have maybe been bent. So I feel certain that this fellow knew what he was talking about. I have some artillery shells here. That some of these I've found, some of them I bought, and we got the swords here. I don't know for sure on this sword here. It's no writing. Maybe somebody here might know for sure, but I think it's a good possibility it's a Confederate officer's sword. And I got, this is the way the book looks, this is a musician's sword right here. And this is just it's got 1862 U.S. on it, so this was obviously a Union piece. I have a gun here that I've had for quite some time. in the first part of the war, a lot of the guys would carry small arms, but as the war went on, you know, they didn't like carrying extra weight. So this is 1859 Sharps 4-barrel Derringer. It has a revolving firing pin. Every time you pull the trigger back, the firing pin will turn to the next cylinder. And this gun's in fairly decent condition. Let's see here.
Is it registered?
Yeah, the police know all about it. I carried it in my pocket in here. I could have got charged with concealed weapon, I'm sure.
Did you find that or?
No, that was bought. That was bought. You don't find anything that comes out of the ground like that. I mean, it's you know, very seldom. It would be almost impossible. This mount right here I didn't find any of this stuff here in this particular one. This is all stuff that I bought and traded for and collected through the years. But I got some kind of unusual stuff here. This is a real fancy hat badge. It's a United Confederate Veterans pin.
Mike, would you hold that against the lamp?
Oh, okay.
So, put it against the sweater, we can't see.
It's too dark.
Or right under the light.
Under the light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This right here is something that's I haven't run across in any books or anything that I've looked at. This is a end of sword to hilt. This is a I assume it's an eagle. Still has a lot of gold plating on it. It's not the best condition. I got one other piece that goes with it, and another piece is broken, but it's majority of it's there. And in this case, I have some South Carolina, a couple South Carolina buttons. I have some New York buttons. I have some artillery buttons. I have one which is a fairly rare button. This is called a solid cast eye button. A lot of the Confederate buttons were brass on the front and had iron metal backs with a brass loop. But this one's solid brass all the way through. And this is something else that's in pretty good shape. It has a lot of the gold plate still on it. This is the bottom of a sword sheath. From down in the lower part of Amelia County all the way to Appomattox County. The stuff that I found, the majority of the stuff that I've collected and bought from people are local artifacts. Just about all of it I know that came. I have some stuff that maybe came from Manassas from a guy years ago that used to live up there.
You found that any particular area was richer in artifacts than others, or it's just kind of because activity all
Well,
around the area?
Civil War relic hunting is kind of like fishing. You might go out and not catch that fish, and then the next day you go out and you find all kinds of stuff. So it's just hard to say. It might only be in an area, say, from here to the wall, from here back to the fireplace, and it won't be anything else anywhere else. So it's kind of I don't know, it's just like fishing. That's the only thing I can say about it. As far as I know, this right here is something kind of usual. This is a hook that an officer would have for the sword to clip on this little loop right here. And that's pretty good shape also. In this other case, I just have basically this is the stuff I found here. I do have a couple of different buttons here. I have like I said, we're gonna have, everybody will have to come up here and walk around, look at this after I finish here. This is a VMI cadet button that I found next to a trench. This button has probably 60 or 70% of the gold plating still left on it. It was found right beside a trench. And the story on the VMI cadet buttons, that a lot of guys, Confederate officers, went to VMI. And so when they enlisted in the Confederacy, they went ahead and used these buttons on their uniforms. That's what I've been told. And I have a Virginia button here too that I found at an old home site. And it's in fairly decent shape. It's bent a little bit, but that's, I've only ever found one of these. It's a right tough button to find. I have another button here that's you can look at some of the Confederate stuff, and it's the way it's molded and made. It's not nearly as nice as some of the Confederate stuff. It's more crudely made. This is a North Carolina state seal button here. This is one of the best buttons I ever found right here. This is a C button, Confederate Cavalry, and I've been looking for many a year to find this particular button right here. And this is one of the C buttons that they have 2 or 3 different varieties. This one has, you have to really look close with magnifying glass, but on the letter itself you can see the real fine lines on the C part of it, and that's a pretty rare button. And I got a button here. I found a pile of mini balls, maybe a dozen mini balls, and I found a tip off of a bayonet scabbard. The bayonet scabbards, most of them were leather and had brass tips. This button was right in the middle of the pile of mini balls. It is a old locomotive, Civil War era locomotive, and you know, it's not military, but I'm sure it had to be dropped at the same time, the age of the train, with it laying in the middle of the bullets. So I feel certain that that's dropped by a Civil War guy. I guess that's about it. Here's something else. This is a Union cavalry bullet, Spencer, and towards the end of the war there, they had the Union cavalry. They had repeating rifles, and they didn't have the paper cartridges behind the mini ball. They had a regular rimfire bullet, and it's tough to find these intact. Well, this one's kind of been flattened out on the end here for some reason, but usually it seems like if they're dropped in the woods, when you'll find the casings, no problem, but when you find it's tough to find one of these together, because I think the black powder eventually eats up the brass. So if you find one of these it's whole, you got a good find.
Mike, have you ever had your collection appraised?
No, never have. It's just fun hobby more than anything. This is something else here. This is a ramrod. It was found down next to Sailor's Creek. And this is a rammer part right here. And it's been bent at a 90-degree angle for some type of tool or something. Occasionally you find like bayonets they have been around, and they made them for hangers for their pots and that type of thing. And this is kind of neat because it's bent. They had used it for some type of tool. And here's go back over this way. This is a Springfield bayonet right here. I don't know if you can imagine getting stuck with this. It'd be pretty bad. And this is something here this is a big hunk of brass right here. I almost just threw this away. And I was looking at it, and I could see kind of an oval shape to it. So I started cleaning it a little bit, and got looking at it. And I hate to think this is a whole pile of melted down belt buckles, but it's a good possibility because there is a belt buckle or a U.S. box plate in right here. You can see it's oval. And if you look at it, you can see part of the U right here. And so a lot of times, guys in camp and stuff, they would be bored and not have anything to do. They'd melt bullets down and belt buckles and stuff like that. But that's a whole bunch of them if it is. I hate to think that's what that is, but anyways. Okay. These right here, these are called canister plates. In between these canister plates, they would put grape shot, just like this. Of course, this is for two different size guns here. What they would do when these things would go off, be a bunch of these steel balls all around there, and they would just go everywhere in these steel plates. So that was another type of projectile they used during the Civil War. And here's another old piece of bayonet that I found. There's not a whole lot left of that one there. This right here, this looks like maybe a pile of junk to a lot of people, but this is actually part of a Dutch oven. This was dug out of a actual Civil War fort right here. So that was what they used to, part of their cooking equipment there. This is this right here. This is a fuse. This came out of an exploded shell more than likely. And this fuse would actually screw in the top of these shells right here. Just like this. It's got threads and everything.
Don't get it close to Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah. Let me see here. The rest of the stuff here is just some odds and ends. I have some old locks here and things that I'm not saying they're Civil War, but the Civil War era, I feel certain that they're, probably even before. And these I thought they were kind of neat. I dug them up when I was relic hunting all, but this one is in really good shape. I didn't, but got some butt plates off of some old muskets and stuff that I've dug. Any questions?
What are the guns?
Oh, okay. This is a 1841 Springfield. This gun has been modified, and which really takes away from the antique value of it. This is a flintlock conversion right here. It was at one time a flintlock type gun. But this gun is supposed to be probably about this much longer. The stock's supposed to come all the way up. But somebody, I don't know for what reason that was done, but it's in great shape. In fact, I used to use this on for reenacting years ago. Yes, this is a Harper's Ferry. I think it's 1853. And I think this gun was picked up off the battlefield years ago when I started fooling with it. I got some mud and stuff out of the barrel. The stock had started to deteriorate some. It started actually getting dirty somewhat. So I think probably this gun was maybe dropped on the battlefield and maybe, laid on the battlefield for a few years before somebody found it, but it wasn't out there for so many years.
So what is the procedure when you get a reading on your machine? How do you dig it up? Very carefully, I suspect.
What I usually try to do is take my shovel and go up underneath what I'm digging, try to get a whole big clod of dirt, And that way, and try not to damage whatever you're digging. I don't like to go in the summertime when it's real dry or in frozen ground because you can damage your object real easy. And I have been really lucky. I've never destroyed a button. I've dented up some bullets and stuff before, but I've never have damaged anything that, you know, that I really wanted to save or anything. So, but it's you do have to be careful in that part. Any more questions?
Yeah, you use a metal detector?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain the procedure a little bit, Mike, for those that may not be familiar with the detection, how the depth and so forth.
Okay, the metal detector I have is a knotless DMC2, which I've had for quite so many years, and it's a really good machine. And they do have better machines than this supposedly now, because I had this one for almost 15 years. But it's I can tell basically what I'm digging. If I'm out there long enough, I can tell whether I'm finding bullets. Now, shotgun shells and buttons sound a whole lot alike, or, you know, if I'm finding barbed wire, I know that type of thing. You know, the only thing is sometimes you'll, like a piece of barbed wire, if it's been around in a circle, it will give a funny reading, you know, and you'll dig it, you think you're maybe finding something good, and it's really a piece of junk. But believe me, you dig a lot of junk to get to the good stuff. I mean, it's lots of junk.
You
Any more
find
questions?
many bullets?
Oh yeah, I had a jar there with
Any bitten bullets?
the bitten bullets are, that is, I don't know, there's a big argument about that. People say that they didn't rip, I got 2 bullets, okay? I sent one to a dentist one time, and well, Dr. Hicks sent it by somebody I knew. He said, take this, that worked for Dr. Hicks. I said, take this to Dr. Hicks and see if he can tell you what kind of teeth they are. They were pig teeth prints. Pigs will root around, you know, you ever seen pigs, they'll pick up rocks and chew on them? They'll do the same thing with bullets. And I have bullets that have this teeth print. And when I first found a couple of those, I got real excited. I said, man, this guy, they were sawing his leg off or something. You know, he really bit this bullet good. But it's just, I don't know. You know, that's, the people that supposedly know say that this didn't happen. That they would give them, if they did anything, they'd give them a piece of leather to chew on or something. You know, those bullets, they might be soft, but they're hard enough to break your teeth. So that, to me, that's, the leather way of doing it would make more sense. Anybody else?
Mike, did any of these items come from your grandparents' home place?
Not a whole lot. Most of the stuff that I found have been all over, you know, in a pretty good size range there.
Mike, what depth do you normally find? Well, you said we had horrible town, and 150 years that far down.
Well, you know, that's really interesting. I have kicked the leaves back and found mini balls laying on top of the ground in areas in woods that I know that have never been cultivated because it's next to a big gully or something like that. And then you might find a mini ball or something. You know, I've dug them a foot deep before. You take something like a cannonball or something. I mean, probably could possibly find it up to, say, 20 inches, maybe 2 feet deep. It's,
Weight would have a lot to do with it.
yeah, how an object's laying has a whole lot to do with it too. For instance, like a coin, I've dug, you know, I've never been real lucky on finding a lot of good coins, a few, and I've brought coins out before and lay the dirt out, and they end up by standing up on the edge, and you go over top of it, you can't find it. And then you just move that dirt around and it lays over flat ways, and you get a real good reading. But the ground being moist has a whole lot to do with how you're gonna. I mean, your machine works better in moist ground than real dry ground. But it's a cheap sport. I mean, some batteries. You know, you can go out and have a good time all day long if you like digging.
Does your machine give you any indication how far down something is?
Sometimes if you get a faint reading, that will indicate that something could be deep. It's hard to tell sometimes because, you know, what the object possibly could be. It could be, what will drive you crazy is these little 22 short casings. And, you know, you dig them, sometimes you'll dig those out, and then you lay the dirt over and you can't even find it, or so they're so small, or a piece of buckshot. You know, that's really frustrating too, trying to find that once you get the dirt out.
So it could be just something very small that's faint or something that's down deep.
Right, right. If it's down deep, sometimes it'll give you a faint reading.
You find any horseshoes?
Yeah, quite a few.
They don't have any relic value?
Well, somebody told me there was a way to tell if they were military shoes or not, but nobody's ever shared that information with me. So depends on how far I am, how far I got to walk. And sometimes if I don't have real far to go back to the car or something, I'll carry the horseshoes home or something.
And some of the soldiers had timepieces. You come across any of those watches?
I've found some watches, but not of really good quality. Some cheap, you know, watches. They were usually not in very good shape. I found, you know, several of them. But,
What's in the box?
oh, nothing. It's just that's what I carried my stuff in here with. I bought that at a yard sale, and I just thought it so.
Mention that emblem that had been stamped out, which was a Confederate, which was a Yankee emblem.
Okay.
In the Confederate war.
Billy told me, he called me and told me to come by the store here a while back. He had the Union soldiers, they were people called sutlers that would follow the armies around selling goods to the soldiers. And one of the things they would sell, they looked like coins. How big? Big as a
About 50 cents.
50-cent piece. The old plated picture with General McClellan on it, the War of 1861. And I had something else written on it. It's probably one of those in my relic books over here. But anyways, on the back it would be the man's name, rank, and everything, his unit. All right, there have been 2 of those found in this area in the last year that have been stamped out. They have X's all over the name and the rank and everything on the back. You cannot even begin to tell what was written on it. And I find that really odd for 2 of those to be found in this area, but they have. They're really a good find, but I just, you know, with the guy's name and everything, I don't know what they'd be worth stamped out. But I feel like the Confederates probably had picked those up, maybe took it off a dead guy or found it, and they were just, you know, they were just keeping it for a souvenir type thing. But anybody else?
What research maps, finding aids, or oral history do you use to help locate these stuff?
95% of the places I go to are places that have been handed down. Older people told me about. One place I went to, it was way off the road. This was an older fellow told me about it. He said, well, my grandfather told me that at this certain place there's this old house back in the woods there's right behind his property. He said the soldiers buried a case of rifles in a graveyard and tried to make it look like a grave. Well, I wouldn't go back there and dig in a graveyard, but I thought, well, this would be might be a good place to go back there and see if we could find something. So I was with another guy that owned the property there also, and he said, oh, we're not going to find anything back here. And I said, oh, let's look a little while longer. And in the driveway to this old house, a 12-pound cannonball I pulled out of the driveway. And I thought you said there was nothing here. So then, you know, I went back several times after that and found some stuff. But I would never known about this place if it hadn't been for this old guy telling me about it. And I had several other places like it also. But I have done some research with maps and stuff, but I have so many places to look at and really don't have the time. I used to go out in the wintertime just about every weekend, but now I only get to go maybe 3 or 4 times a year or something like that. I've been going a little bit more the last couple of years than I have been quite a few years. Anybody else? Okay, if y'all would like to come up here and look around, I'll be glad to, you know, show you or pull out of the case anything that I have that you might have an interest in. Good seeing you, fellas. Good seeing you. Good seeing you. Appreciate you coming by.
Thank you. I think he would like for you to take a look at
I would love to.
You want to see a closer look?
Give me a price.
Okay.
I'm trying to give a lecture on that book of relics. I'm serious. That's 2 of them are written from here.
Okay. I haven't even had a chance to look at
By the way, that was my great uncle. It was my great uncle. He wrote the letter.
Great uncle grandfather.
And he was
Somebody who didn't get one.
You want it, Jim?
I've got one, thank you. He was trying to break
Okay. Good. Maybe they can compare notes.
Yeah. What's it say on there? Can you read it?